CITES-Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. It is an international agreement between governments that aims to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten the survival of the species. Parties: states that have agreed to be bound by the convention. CITES provide a framework to be respected by each party, which has to adopt its own domestic legislation to ensure that CITES is implemented at a national level. For many years, CITES has been among the conservation agreements with the largest membership, with now 183 parties. According to ecological footprint, humanity is currently using resources 1.7 times faster than ecosystems can generate. For this reason, negative attitudes and effects towards the natural world are becoming excessive. Forests are shrinking, species are becoming endangered, drought, water scarcity, soil erosion, loss of biodiversity, pollution, and carbon dioxide are gradually piling up in the atmosphere. In today's time, flora and fauna species are being threatened with extinction in the wild through over-harvesting, habitat loss, climate change, and unregulated or illegal international trade. Annually, international wildlife trade is estimated to be worth billions of dollars and to include hundreds of millions of plants and animal specimens. The trade is diverse, ranging from live animals and plants to a vast array of wildlife products derived from them, including food products, exotic leather goods, wooden musical instruments, timber, tourist curios, and medicines. Level of exploitation of some animal and plant species are high, and the trade in them, together with other factors, such as habitat loss, is capable of heavily depleting their populations and even bringing some species close to extinction. These happenings, issues, and concerns led CITES to regulate or ban international trade in species under threat, and now doing its mission to ensure the conservation of wild animals and plants, as well as the international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten the survival of the said species. Wildlife refers to creatures that aren't generally domesticated. They are a finite resource that will eventually deplete or be replaced. Wildlife plays a critical role in balancing the ecosystem. It may be found in all types of ecosystems, including deserts, rainforests, and grasslands. Implementation of the law. In policing wildlife trade and keeping those threatened species off the auction book, there's a list of vulnerable species under 3 categories: Appendix 1, 2, and 3. This 3 appendix is defined under the Article 2 of the agreement. Appendix 1. Species that have been identified as being threatened with extinction and entails strict regulation in regards to trade and exportation. Example is species of Asian arowana. Appendix 2 entails species that are not currently threatened with extinction, but could become so due to collection of wild specimens. Additionally, the appendix consists of plants and animals that may not be threatened themselves, but have a correlation to the irresponsible collection of threatened species.
To better understand this, let's pretend that there are 2 different species of fish, fish A and fish B. They look almost identical as juveniles, but fish A is a threatened species and fish B is plentiful. In order to keep juvenile fish of species A from entering the market due to misidentification as species B, both fish may appear in Appendix 2.
Appendix 3 consists of species that are protected in at least one country and indicates that the member nation has requested assistance from other CITES parties in regulating trade and exportation of the species. Example is Walrus and the country Canada as concerned party. The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora is an international treaty or an agreement between countries with over 183 parties as members. The objective of CITES is to control the international movement of untamed plant life and animals, alive or dead, whole or in parts thereof, in the sort of way as to be confident that the pressures of global alternate or illegal trade do not no longer contribute to the endangerment of the indexed species. The trade of certain animals and plants is not allowed with countries who have not signed up to CITES agreement. CITES only regulates the international movement of species to safeguard the availability and sustainability of these resources for future use. Among several concerns, recognizing that certain wild animal and plant species need to be protected from the threat of illegal trade and extinction, particularly from over-exploitation by commercial interest. CITES emphasized the importance of safeguarding and wisely managing humankind's wildlife heritage and habitat, as well as ensuring nature's conservation by creating practical tools to strengthen their controls over illegal trade and over exploitation of resources. Essentially, humans are reliant on the environment for their needs and means of survival. Hence, wildlife conservation is critical to the ecosystem balance and the stability of various natural processes to ensure sustainable and efficient resource use amid the increased demand on natural resources due to overpopulation and globalization. Recommendations. Despite increased global efforts to prevent and suppress illegal wildlife trade, there is still no firm agreement on its precise scope and magnitude as a form of transnational environmental or wildlife crime. Although CITES has had some success, there is still a number of implementation issues such as insufficient enforcement in foreign countries, as well as complex and continuous issues. The use of reservations, the monitoring of species and specimens, as well as the global illegal wildlife trade's persistence are all factors to consider. Hence, the following recommendations are formulated. Number 1. Establish strict implementation of management and scientific authorities in all parties involved to ensure that effective enforcement of laws and compliance, such as laws concerning wildlife conservation, are met. Number 2. Create feasible and effective protocols for confiscating illegally traded specimens by coordinating and promoting strategic cooperation with other relevant environmental and criminal frameworks to suppress wildlife crimes. Number 3. A lack of political support due to rampant corruption in the government, collusion between illegal traders and law enforcement officials could also be a hindrance to the effective monitoring and implementation of laws against illegal wildlife trade. Thus, penalties, sentencing, severity of punishment, and prosecution of wildlife crimes must be strengthened. Number 4. Increase parties' capacity to implement domestic legislation and policies to support CITES, particularly in terms of political will and agreement, as well as fund the needs for effective enforcement and implementation to further improve cooperation and communication among other international stakeholders regarding CITES effective enforcement. CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora.
Group 5. Group Leader, Kathleen Sioting. Members, Mary Jade Bacalangco, Xyryll Ann Bacharo, Rey Dongor, Regine Puelan, Katherine Sioting, Kryzal Dee Ardison, Shan Rexis Detablan,